I would like to, before calling my rebuttal witness, indicate that we are going to try to prove through this witness that civil disobedience is not what the others have said, but is a viable political tactic and a non-violent tactic. And to do that, I would like to call Howard Zinn to the stand.
Welcome to the Advocates, Professor Zinn.
Howard Zinn is an historian, an old friend of mine, I believe a client somewhere along the way, and he's been involved in civil disobedience both in the South and against the war in Vietnam. Professor Zinn, why civil disobedience today? Why not wait for what our adversary witnesses have said, the normal processes of government, to catch up with the war in Vietnam?
I was listening to the congressman, the former congressman, the present congressman, the senator, listening to Congressman O'Neill, and they all talk as if the political process were a quite simple one, and that is that if everybody would just be nice and talk nice to your congressman, write him letters, write letters to the newspaper, sign petitions, that the war in Vietnam would end, the bombers would be brought home, the GIs would be brought home, and the power-hungry American military establishment would lose its hunger. That's not the way things have happened in this war, and that's not the way things have happened in history. Throughout American history, the political leaders have always exhorted the American people to be nice and quiet and leave things to them. But when very serious evils confronted the American people, they had to go beyond the congressmen and the senators, and they had to commit civil disobedience, and they had even to break the law. And the abolitionists had to do it, and right here in Boston, they had to violate federal law by trying to bring a slave away from the federal marshals. They had to commit civil disobedience. The labor movement had to do this. They had to violate the law. They had to disrupt things. They had to do all sorts of impolite things. They had the sit-ins of sit-down strikes of 1936 and 37. And only this finally brought that modicum of justice that the labor movement demanded. And the civil rights movement went through the same thing. And you know, the Congress did not act on the civil rights laws of 64 and 65 until blacks went out into the streets and made a commotion. They did not do it on the basis of some polite discourse.
Professor Zinn, if I can interrupt you for a minute, because I want to get, before we run out of time, I want to get to one point. Both Al Lowenstein and Senator Hart and Tip O'Neill have made promises to us tonight. They've said if we wait and don't disrupt Congress and don't get people excited and irritated, then they will end the war in Vietnam by December, according to Mr. O'Neill, by some other date. Why not wait and make them live up to the promissory note they've made?
We have had promissory notes from Congress for 6 years. For 6 years, Congress has promised to preserve our lives, our liberties, and have promised to defend the Constitution of the United States, which is an oath that they took. For 6 years, Congress violated that oath, as the President violated that oath, by carrying on and acceding to a constitutional war. Mr. O'Neill, who exhorts us to quietude and obeisance to law, voted for every single military appropriation bill. Of 21 military appropriation bills brought up before Congress between 1965 and 1970, he voted for every single one of them. No, I don't think we can depend on Congress. And the American political system, you know, we have been brought up to believe that the American political system works beautifully. It is democratic. Congress represents us. The President is elected. He represents us. It doesn't work that way. Democracy depends on people speaking out, and in times of great crisis, on people creating a commotion. Garrison once said, when they accused him of breaking the law, of disrupting things, of antagonizing people, he said, "Slavery, sir, will not be overthrown without excitement."
All right, Mr.
A tremendous excitement.
Thank you, Mr. Zinn.
Good time to have some fun.